All right, I'm gonna be completely honest with y'all, man. I'm gonna keep it a bean with y'all, like I always do. This is one of those episodes where I'm going to allow myself to be vulnerable, as if I didn't do that already by, sharing my own personal thoughts for the last 2 years and some change on a public podcast platform. I feel like that's vulnerability enough right there. But this is a little different, man. This is an episode where I'm going to allow myself to be vulnerable for y'all. I'm going to keep it a beam with y'all like I always do. But this is one where I'm going to let you guys exactly know, as if you couldn't tell my picks from the picture that I put for the episode. But I'm going to let you guys know the movie moments that broke me, man. We're going to get right into it because I don't want to take up too much time on this. But I need to ask y'all a question, man. How many of y'all get like super emotional during movies? Like, do you guys go into movies like I feel like there are different groups of people. There are groups of people who go to the movies or watch movies at home because they want to escape. They don't want realism. They don't want everything to be, with a heavy heart, heavy handed on the message and all that shit. They just want to be entertained, from start to finish. And that's all. They just go in for the spectacle a lot of the times. But then there's another group of people, not saying these are only two, but then there's another group of people who watch these movies for realism. They watch these movies to have emotional attachments to people. They watch these movies with the expectations of probably being moved in a way that's going to, cause the waterworks. I don't think I'm one of those people. And I feel like anytime I go into a movie, whether it's, if it's a drama, whatever the case may be, I feel like I pretty much got a good grasp on what I'm getting myself into. But there's been movies, man, ever since I was a kid, I'm telling y'all right now, there's been films, whether horror, action, drama, comedy, whatever it is. There's been movies, man, that have tested my plumbing, so to speak, man. Pause. But that's exactly the phrase I have to use, man, because I tell myself, like, it's just a movie, it's just a movie. It's art imitating life and stuff like that. So for me to get the waterworks going when movies are playing, whether it's in the beginning, whether it's something that happens in the middle, whether it's the ending, the closing statements or scene, whatever the case may be, man, I feel like that is a nice feat to have on your belt as a film. I'm not saying like they made the movie like, yeah, we're going to make Romero Tudor cry. I'm not saying they did that to me personally, but I'm saying if the movie can get me emotional as fuck, as much as y'all hear me goof around and talk my shit on these episodes, if the movie can get that out of me, bravo, man. Job well done. Standing ovation. You know what I'm saying? But these moments, man, and I'm going to explain why. Like I said, you guys already know what it's hitting for because I couldn't think of the proper thumbnail to put on here. And, I got to shout out my boy Christian, man, because I hit him up in confidence just to ask him. I'm like, look, man, I don't know whether to use this picture or just a picture with all of the 5 emotional moments I have. And he's just like, look, it's your show, man. Use whatever the fuck you want. And one of my concerns was that something was going to get spoiled. One movie in particular that people probably haven't seen is one of the more recent movies. Actually, it is the most recent movie on this list. I was more concerned that was going to be a big spoiler. And he's like, come on, man. Like, the movie's been out for some time. And, if they haven't seen it, they haven't seen it. And I hate to say it, he's right. I usually wait until like the first couple weeks, 2 weeks probably to be exact, so I don't post spoilers. That's one thing I don't like to do because I've had plenty of movies spoiled for me, plenty of endings spoiled for me, and it's one of the reasons why I don't fuck with a lot of comment sections on Instagram and Facebook, why I get out of a lot of movie groups, and just why I either block or just don't talk to motherfuckers in general on social media, because we live in here we go with this fucking line again, but we live in a society where everything's spoiler territory, and that's just the reality of it. But if we're going to talk emotions, it make you cry sometimes. Like people need to listen to that H-Town song back in the day. Dino, rest in peace, shout out to that H-Town member. He said it best, man. Emotions, they make you cry sometimes. They do. Now, some honorable mentions, man, that did not make this list, however. I do want to give them shouts out for either making me cry during or almost getting me there. I could not go through with this list in its entirety without having these honorable mentions on here because I've really wanted to do like a top 10 But I didn't want this episode to be too long-winded and just have people like, oh, he cried during that movie. Like, listen, first and foremost, before I get into these honorable mentions or my 5 picks, I ain't no bitch. All right, let me just get that out the way. I'm just being vulnerable with the listeners right now, man. I'm putting all types of content out for y'all. I said, why not switch gears a little bit and just take it to another genre of episode, if that makes any goddamn sense right there. But I'm I'm tough as nails, man. Don't play around. It's just sometimes these movies get the best of me and I have to check my surroundings, and hopefully nobody's around me at the time when these movies cause me to get all emotional and shit. All right. But my honorable mentions here for movie moments that broke me. First of all, Set It Off was a movie that I didn't cry, but I remember watching that movie with my mom when I was a kid, and she cried during, they play that what is it, Against the Wind song when Queen Latifah dies. I'm pretty sure I'm not the only person that, got choked up when Cleo, big shout out to Queen Latifah. She played the hell out of that role. Set It Off is definitely, Cleo's death in Set It Off was definitely one of those moments that really got me, man. And I was like, damn, she went out like a G. She knew she was going to die. She told her friends that, I'll catch up to y'all and this, that, and other. She lit her last cigarette. She knew what she was doing, but she did that so her friends could get away. But Set It Off is definitely a mention of movie moments that broke me. The Temptations, when Melvin Franklin dies and Smokey Robinson said, when he's like, I'm gonna miss you. Like, that's mega. Listen, that moment in the Temptations, and then they're doing like the montage of how him and Otis met, and when he was in the group having fun. Jesus crap, man. Temptations broke me too, man. The Pursuit of Happiness was a movie, and now I'm not gonna lie, I didn't tear up. I cried. Pursuit of Happiness. Set It Off and the Temptations, I didn't cry. Pursuit of Happiness, I did, because the whole movie's heavy. The entire movie's heavy. So at the end, when he finally, when there was a glimmer of hope, there was light at the end of the tunnel at the end of the movie. And rest in peace, shout out to James Cameron, because I think he's one of the people that's like, son, would you like this job, this internship or whatever? And then Will Smith just starts breaking down, like he's breaking down, but like in a subtle, calm way. The whole movie is amazing, man. I wish I could shout out the director, but I don't know the director's name offhand. The Five Heartbeats is a movie that got me, and it wasn't the scene that people would that people would think it would be. It was actually the scene where they were in the tunnel and they played that slower version of Nothing But Love, and you have Harry Lennox Jr. who hugs Michael Wright. And, he hugs him because he knows something wrong with his friend. He knows his friend is grimy and he's on drugs and shit, but that's still his brother at the end of the day. So when they hug in the tunnel and they play that song, that was another moment. The Best Man Holiday, when Monica Calhoun's character, Mia, like her funeral, that shit was heavy. And I didn't cry because this shit really happens in real life, but I didn't cry until the casket lowered. And, there's a shot of Morris Chestnut's hand. He's got a fist balled up and his hand just releases. His hand releases and he starts shaking. But I've been there before, man. I'm sure we've all been there at funerals where the hardest part is not like the viewing or the service, but it's the burial, that last moment before that casket drops into the ground. So that movie got me. Coach Carter got me, where Timo Cruz, shout out Rick Gonzalez, where he does the our deepest fear speech is not that we are inadequate. It wasn't just a speech, but it was the fact that he told Samuel Jackson, I just want to say thank you. You saved my life. And the way Samuel Jackson responded to that when he teared up, I was like, oh my God, man, like this guy doesn't know, like he was a safe haven for these troubled kids, man. And the last honorable mention I got to make is Philadelphia. And I'm pretty sure Jonathan Demme was the director of that, because he does those creepy movie angles, man, where you're just literally staring into the camera while the person's talking to you, type of shit, while the actor's talking to you. But the whole movie, Philadelphia, especially the ending where Tom Hanks is like literally about to die and his family saying their goodbyes, but they're kind of like, they're being nice about it, like, I'll see you later, buddy, and stuff like that. So those are the honorable mentions here, people. But if we can get to them really fast, because I'm not trying to take up too much of y'all time with this episode, if we can get to these 5 picks. Number 1, as if there was a doubt in anybody's mind, Brian O'Connor's send-off in Furious 7, man. Now, Furious 7's a movie I went to the theater to see, and it not only was 2015 a good year, my daughter was born that year. The movie came out a couple weeks later, and I remember I chalked it. I wanted to see the movie, but I chalked it. I'm like, my baby just came home, and I remember my mom wanted to know, she knew how bad I wanted to see that movie, and she's just like, look, like, you can bring her here and I'll babysit for you, and while you go see the movie, and then just pick her up when you come back. And I'm like, bet, best babysitter ever. So I went to the theater And the send off didn't hit me right away. It didn't hit me until I watched the movie again. Now, before we get to the send off and how they did it, let's just talk a little bit about Brian O'Connor's journey and what made it emotional. Like, Brian O'Connor went from being undercover in LA and meeting the crew to being an informant for the FBI in Miami and, joining Roman, Tej, Suki, and Jimmy. Roman, who he already knew, had a brotherhood with, so that was a good aspect between them two. He was an FBI agent again in LA, and he had a reunion with Dom and Mia. Him and Don strengthened their bond once again. Then he had another reunion in Brazil with the whole crew. Met some. Did he meet new people? No, because he knew Giselle. Yeah, he knew everybody. I feel like Dom certain people didn't know each other, but Brian knew everybody for the most part. Now, and he was a fugitive. He was a fugitive in that movie. So he was on the other side of, Matt Scholl's character, Vince, said he was on the other side of a wanted poster. Then he was a pardon pending fugitive in London, where they had to find out Letty was still alive and stuff like that. And then in Furious 7, he was a free family man in Los Angeles. Then he went from that to doing fucking rescue missions in the mountains and being a spy in Dubai. Bars. That should be a movie, actually. The Spy in Dubai. That should be like the James Bond spinoff type of spoof. But whatever. Now, the breaking moment for me was the ending. Like, the send off, for one. I knew it was CG with Paul Walker, but they did the best possible job they could. I feel like they saved that CG for last, because that's some of the best CG they used on Paul Walker in the entire movie. That last ride that him and Dom take when Brian's in the white Supra and Dom's in I don't know if Dom's in a Charger. I don't know what the hell type of car that is, but not only, he's like, he pulls up on Dom and he says, you thought you could leave without saying goodbye. Then they do that close up shot of him smiling. And then he just gets ready for that one last ride, man. All pun intended. And, there's the montage, which, I was the second time I watched, actually the first time, like I said, the second time was when I cried. First time was just like, phew, this shit's heavy, because they do that montage of Brian throughout the course of all of these movies, his relationship with Dom, his relationship with Mia, Roman, Han, Tej, everybody, Suki, Jim, everybody. It was such a beautiful moment, such a beautiful send-off for Paul Walker's character. But what fucked my soul up is when they're driving and they show Dom look at Brian one more time, and Brian looks at Dom, and Brian kind of just looks back at the road and he laughs and he just shakes his head like come on, man, like stop being a bitch. You're gonna see me again. And ironically enough, they're playing "See You Again" by Charlie Puth and Wiz Khalifa. But what really destroyed me, and y'all know where I'm going with this, man, was when the two cars split. They didn't follow each other. They both split into different parts of the road, man, and they went their separate ways, and Brian O'Connor literally rides off into the distance. That shit was handled so well. And I remember the second time I watched it, when I finally bought the movie on DVD and I watched it by myself, completely fucking sober, I was like, this shit, like, it's one of them things where you don't notice yourself crying and you kind of like you got to snap out of it and wipe your face off. I'm just like, yep. Thank God nobody's around me, because this shit fucked me up. And it was me coming to the realization that they kept this character alive in this series, which is a really classy move to keep the character alive, because they could have easily fucked it up and killed him off, which I thought they were going to do. But they had way more class than that. So they kept the character alive and just made it so that for his family's sake, he retires. And not only that, but to know that they kept the character alive, but Paul Walker was actually gone in real life. It was like such a combination of different things that just sent me into that emotional spiral, man. And that is probably the most emotional moment, rightfully so, in the entire Fast and Furious franchise. So much so that I got choked up in the Fate of the Furious, the 8th movie after, the one that we're talking about now, where Roman, and it's just lines, and Roman says Brian would know what to do, and Letty's like, no. She's like, we can't bring Brian and Mia into this. We agreed on that. And Roman's just like, I know. Like, he knew that they couldn't involve Brian, but he put it out there because that was his friend. And I'm telling you, I'm getting hit in the heart just talking about it now, because that one fucking line in the next movie, Brian would know what to do. It's like, God damn, that didn't even, funny thing is, it didn't even hit me hard when they mentioned him in, Fast 9. It was amazing seeing him at the end of the movie. But, well, not seeing him, but seeing his car pull up to the now under construction Toretto house. That was a nice touch. But Furious 7, man, that will forever be number one on this list. And I feel like the rest of these are, well, they're in kind of a particular order, but not really. Now, moving on to number 2, people. Logan's death. In Logan, we got to look at Logan's journey first and foremost. This man had not only the most popular X-Men character ever, and if he wasn't the most popular prior to the movies, then Hugh Jackman made that man a national treasure, a walk-in national treasure. Because Logan's definitely a favorite character in every X-Men movie, you know, so much so that they had to put a cameo for him in X-Men Apocalypse. And everybody was a little concerned. I remember I saw that in the theater. But before that, when they were dropping trailers, I remember everybody was concerned because they're like, wait, Wolverine's just not going to show up for a cameo. But then they show those claws at the end. And it's like, you couldn't have an X-Men movie without him in there somewhere, somehow, some way. We going to make it about the hood someday. One of my favorite songs. I'm getting sidetracked. But you got to take a look at Logan's journey real quick. And Logan's been all over the goddamn place, man. He's went from, you know, finding himself and discovering himself, fighting Magneto, joining Magneto with the Brotherhood to go up against Stryker, the man responsible for, you know, why Logan is the way he is today. You know, trying to save Jean when she turned into Dark Phoenix, going on a fucking, you know, road trip origin story to stop Sabretooth and fighting Blob and Gambit and Deadpool and all types of people. You know, he went to Japan and was fighting ninjas, and I don't know what that girl's name was it Serpent or whatever that mutant's name was that had the snake tongue or whatever it was. I didn't really like her character, but he was fighting Silver Samurai, then going back in time and being the only hope for the future, the days of future past to be exact, you know, having his cameo in Apocalypse and, you know, a futuristic version of him with a clone in the movie Logan and becoming a father figure throughout, you know, against his will throughout the course of the last movie he was in. So, of course, the breaking moment was seeing Logan die, because throughout all these movies, Logan's the one that has healing powers. So it's like, yeah, you know, nothing's ever going to fucking happen to Logan unless somebody cuts his head off. And even if they did that, I'm sure there's a lot of fans out there that would still be optimistic. Like, well, we don't know how well his healing powers are. Maybe he'll just grow that shit back through the stump, you know, like Jeeves from Men in Black when he grew a head back after he got it blown off. No, you know, nobody knows. But to see Logan's journey through this last movie he was in, it's bittersweet, man, because it's like, oh my God, this is the X-Men movie I've been waiting for. It's rated R. It's a hard R rating. Blood, severed heads, all over the fucking place. Carnage Candy. Very dark in tone. Felt like a Western. Felt a lot like Man on Fire as far as, you know, the whole dynamic with him and X-23. I can't remember that actress's name, but she did a fantastic job in the film. And she was a girl of very little dialogue, but she still made it effective with what she did and, you know, how she reacted to certain situations. So to see him, like I said, against his will, get so attached to this little girl and for him to get killed, you know, in front of her. And he doesn't die right away. And a lot of this was foreshadowed. This very moment was foreshadowed in the Wolverine movie that takes place in Japan. And I think Yuriko is the one that tells him, you know, she's like, I see you dying and you're holding your heart in your hand or something. And it literally happens like that. Now he does get, I think it was X-24, the Logan clone or whatever the hell he was called. He slams that motherfucker on a tree branch that looks like a goddamn javelin, and it just impales Logan. And at this point, he's not going to heal from that because the shit that he's taken, you know, it's I don't remember how this works, but something is going on with Logan's powers where, you know, his claws don't even, you know, shoot out right away anymore because he's getting older and his powers are kind of failing him. So there's a scene where he's pulling his claws out by hand and he's bleeding while he's doing it. So he's getting older, you know, he's getting weaker. But even with that boost of energy he has where he goes berserker mode in the woods and starts slicing people up, X-24 still, I'm pretty sure that was the name. So if I'm getting that wrong, people, my apologies for the Logan fans out there. But he really impales him on there. And then when the clone dies, X-23 runs up to him and he's just dying. And she's like, no, we're going to get you help or whatever. So I don't remember if she says anything, but she grabs his hand and calls him dad. And I'm telling y'all, when I saw that, first of all, She did that. She called him dad while she held his hand, foreshadowing that Yoriko did. And she's like, listen, you're holding your heart in your hand because he really cared about that girl enough to die for her and enough to protect her throughout the entire movie, even though he didn't want to. So for that to happen, for them to join hands and for her to call him dad, and he kind of like had this like look of relief, and he's like, so that's what that feels like being a dad. That's what that feels like. But in your dying moments, and I'll never forget it, people. I was watching Logan. I was sitting in my living room. I said, let me watch this. I think it was when they first put it on cable, because I was very late to the party watching the movie. So they put it on cable. I sat in the living room and I spaced out to it. And when that part happened, I remember it was out of my right eye. It was just a single tear that fell in that moment. And I'm just like, God damn, like the X-Men movies are pretty heavy emotionally to begin with, but not like this. I've never seen an X-Men movie like this. And honestly, there will never be an X-Men movie like this. This isn't even, you can't even really consider this an X-Men movie. For real, for real. Yeah, it's a Logan solo film, but there's no movie tonally that feels like this. And that's probably for the best. Now, moving on, people. Number 3, Tony Stark, man. When Tony did the snap, actually, this is kind of like a two-parter where Tony does the snap and his death scene and his funeral, for that matter. Everything involving Tony from the snap on. Let's just say that. To save face, let's just say everything from when Tony snaps on. That is the moment that broke me. The moments that broke me, rather. Of course, this was an Avengers Endgame. Now, I already knew that somebody was going to die. And based on the trailers, they bamboozled me quite a bit, because I swore it was going to be Captain America. I said, this is fitting. Captain America is going to die. He's got half a shield, but he's still strapping that shield on, about to go to fuck to work. Because, Cap can rumble. But I said, if he's going to die in this film, he's going to die fighting. And probably a lot of other people around him. But who was the one to go? And this was foreshadowed in the original Avengers movie, where Tony and the scepter's making everybody turn against each other, basically. So Tony and Cap are going at it, and Cap tells him, he's basically telling him, like, you're self-centered. You're not the guy to make a sacrifice play, lay down on a wire and let the other guy crawl over you. But not only did he make a sacrifice play at the end of that film by going into the wormhole and saving New York City and possibly the world, but he made this the ultimate sacrifice play in Avengers Endgame, man. And everything led up to that. Unfortunately, as beloved as Iron Man is and Robert Downey Jr. is, you couldn't cast, I know Tom Cruise wanted to play that role, but let's be real. Tom Cruise would have literally built the fucking suit. No stunt double, no CG. He would have fired anybody that tried to get a stunt double and CG on set. Tom Cruise would have really been flying around in that fucking suit. We know that would have happened. He would have went the extra mile. So as cool as it would have been, he wouldn't have been as charismatic and as humorous as Robert Downey Jr. Plus, that was the role, I feel like, Robert Downey Jr., that was like, you are back, bruh. You are back for sure. And Tony's journey, man, becoming Iron Man. I feel like even before he became Iron Man, he had a lesson in humility and had to learn how to be humble. And, that kind of went out the window, like, once he figured out that he was Iron Man. But becoming Iron Man, fighting Ironmonger, fighting Whiplash, which was a pretty easy feat in my opinion, because I feel like Iron Man 2 is weak as fuck. I don't like it, people. It's not terrible, but it's a very boring film for me. The whole fucking movie, if I can have a side note real quick, the whole fucking movie's like Mickey Rourke in a laboratory with a bird, and some platinum fronts. I'm just not the biggest fan of Iron Man 2. But I feel like, he fought Whiplash, he joined the Avengers and saved New York, fighting the Mandarin and creating and fighting Ultron, almost destroying the world with the suit of armor that he wanted to put around it, fighting Team Captain America, mentoring and losing Peter Parker. God damn, man, becoming a family man to making that sacrifice play and, saving the world. I feel like Tony Stark's journey is, it's a bit more tragic for these lighthearted, so to speak, Marvel films. I say lighthearted because, MCU is very much attached to Disney. So that's the difference between Marvel and DC. I feel like the Marvel movies are a little more kid friendly, but this was such a dark turn that it took, because I did not see it coming. I didn't see it coming at all. And when Doctor Strange, when they're having that big ass battle at the end, which is one of the greatest battles in superhero movie history, not just Marvel, but superhero movie history. You know, there's a moment where Doctor Strange looks at Tony and he told him earlier, he's like, yeah, how many did we win? He's like, 1. But then he asks him, how's it end? And he says, if I tell you, it won't happen. So then when Doctor Strange looks at him, he holds up his index finger and lets him know, like, listen, we only won once. You know what to do. And everything was understood. No dialogue. It was understood between those two guys who had gotten off to a rough start in Infinity War. But it was completely understood that Tony had to make another sacrifice play. And I feel like he knew. And I love the line in the beginning of the film where the Avengers, some of the Avengers, I think it's Cap, Ant-Man, and Black Widow show up to his crib. And he says, listen, you know, I'll help you guys out, but I can't lose what I got. You know, I can't lose my family. I have a daughter now. And I understood that, me being a parent, wholeheartedly, because he wanted to help out, but he could not risk leaving that little girl behind. And sadly enough, he does, man. And when he gets those Infinity Stones and Thanos snaps, and Thanos is salty as shit because he looks and he's like, what? He's like, I put this shit on layaway and everything, and it doesn't even light up. So he sees Tony's got the fucking stones. And that moment got me choked up right there, where he had the stones and he gets that charge of electricity as the stones are lighting up. Then he says, I am Iron Man, which dates back to the end of the first movie. He snaps, but the snap was so powerful that it burned half of his body, singed half of his body. So he's fucking done at this point. He knows he's checking out because his whole, his suit, I think the suit's name is Friday. She tells him that, his health levels are fucked up. But what made it's adding insult to injury for me, because not only is Tony dying over there looking like fucking, Harvey Dent in one of the Batman movies, but Peter runs up to him and he's crying. He's just an emotional wreck. Like, Mr. Stark, we won, Mr. Stark. And he's kind of just looking at him like, kid, I fucked up. I can't speak right now. I can't say shit. Like, I'm half well done right now. I can't talk. Then, War Machine, prior to that, kind of just pats him on the shoulder and he gives him a little smirk and he looks at him like, War Machine doesn't say anything, but he kind of looks at him like, well done, my friend. Like, I love you, man. You did all this. You will be immortalized more than you already are. Then Pepper comes up. God damn, man. Pepper comes up to him and Pepper says, you can sleep now. You can finally sleep. And she says earlier in the movie, will you be able to rest, is what she says. And she tells him, you can rest now, Tony. We're okay. We'll be okay. You can rest now. That shit destroyed my existence, people. And like I said, to add insult to injury, the light goes out, and on his suit, and he dies. But what really fucked me up was first of all, the score they played during his funeral. I don't know who's responsible for that score, but fuck you and thank you at the same time, because y'all didn't have to do that. That moment's too heavy. And the fact that everybody and their mom showed up. I think the only person that wasn't at the funeral was Gamora. I really feel like Gamora was the only one that wasn't there. You even had the kid from Iron Man 3 all grown up. And the first time I saw Endgame, I'm like, who the fuck's this kid in the back? Like, is this Tony's illegitimate son? And it kind of sort of was before he became a father, because he spent a lot of time with that kid in the third movie. And the fact that everybody and their mom was there. And then after the funeral scene, after that funeral scene, man, you've got the hologram of Tony, and he says, I love you 3000, talking to his daughter. And he says in the hologram, he's like, man, what am I tripping for, man? This will all work itself out, right? Love you 3000, da da da. And then the daughter asks for cheeseburgers when happy. Man, listen, the Russo brothers, they don't ever have to make another Marvel movie ever again. But if they ever decided to come back, I'll be ready. This time, I feel like Kevin McAllister when he's like, when those guys come back, I'll be ready. That's how I feel about the Russo brothers. We got the same relationship as Kevin McAllister and the Wet Bandits. I almost called them the Sticky Bandits, but that name didn't stick. I need the drum set whenever I tell a bad joke. I need to do that. But yeah, let's move on to number 4, people. I actually don't want to spend too much time on, Tony Stark, because that shit destroyed me almost more than the Fast and Furious Brian O'Connor send-off. But number 4, this was a weird one, because I went into this. First of all, I was super excited. It was one of my most anticipated movies of the year, next to Fast 9. And this was going to be a make or break thing that they were going to do with this movie. And I'm talking about Halloween Kills. But the moment that broke me in Halloween Kills was Dr. Loomis's entrance in the 1978 flashback. I did not expect, I was staying hopeful, to say the least. I was staying hopeful that they would know how to handle a 1978 flashback. And I wasn't sure whether they were going to CG Loomis, whether they were going to have a lookalike actor. I was almost sure they were going to use that guy who was seen around the set somewhere, but I was just absolutely certain. But they didn't even use that guy. They used one of the crew members, and Christopher Nelson, big shout out to him because he did a great job with the effects, and the actor, I can't remember his name, but he did a great job playing Dr. Loomis in the little bit that we did see him. But he ended up putting prosthetic effects on this guy's face, and it turned out really decent. But before we talk about that moment of Dr. Loomis's entrance in that flashback, we have to, of course, talk about Dr. Loomis's journey. Now, big rest in peace shout out to Donald Pleasance, who was the glue and almost the emotional centerpiece next to Laurie Strode of this entire series. And this is my story, and I'm sticking to it. The Halloween movies have not been truly scary nor terrifying, whatever you want to say. They have not been that way since Donald Pleasance passed away. This is one of the reasons I always say Halloween 6 was the last Halloween movie that genuinely scared me, and it still does. But after that, nobody can fill those shoes. Nobody can fill those shoes. And while that actor did a good job playing Donald Pleasance's character, Dr. Loomis, nobody can be Donald Pleasance. He was a force to be reckoned with on screen, man. And him and Michael Myers were two amazing counterparts that the series has always thrived on. But Dr. Loomis's journey, from becoming Michael's doctor to having to track this fucking kid down 15 years later when he escapes, and shooting him off a balcony 6 times, tracking him down again and finding out that the only reason he came back is because he's got a sister he wants to kill. He sacrificed himself to save Laurie Strode in the town of Haddonfield. He's like, listen, man, if I gotta die just to kill you, then we'll both go. Fuck it. I'll be in line at, they're trying to read my name off the guest list in heaven. If Dr. Loomis, that was something that he chalked on the chin, because he'll probably tell whoever's at the front, like, listen, man, tell God to let me in. I killed Michael Myers. And they'll be like, yo, get this man some VIP passes and all he wants to drink up here. I'm not trying to sound blasphemous, people. It's a joke for all my religious fanatics out there. It is a joke. Y'all know the humor doesn't really stop on the podcast most of the time. But from sacrificing himself for the town and for, to save Laurie Strode, and coming back to Haddonfield to save Laurie Strode's daughter, saving Laurie Strode's daughter again and risking his life again. I feel like he risks his life every time he goes up against Michael Myers because he knows what Michael is, but Loomis just doesn't give a fuck, man. And then joining Tommy Doyle in his last go round and trying to save Jamie's baby and the remaining members of the Strode family who lived in the Myers house. Sadly, that was where Dr. Loomis's journey ended, at least for Donald Pleasance, because we know Malcolm McDowell came back to play him in the 2 Rob Zombie movies. I like Malcolm McDowell as an actor. He's a damn fine actor, but as Dr. Loomis, not at all. Definitely not in that second film either. But the moment that broke me, like I said, was Dr. Loomis's entrance. But I'll tell y'all how it went down. What had happened was, the guy, Thomas Mann is actually his name, but he played Thomas Cub in Project X. He plays young Hawkins. Hawkins shoots his partner while he's trying to shoot Michael Myers, and then, his partner dies. So young Hawkins goes to the top of the steps in the Myers house, and you can hear Dr. Loomis's voice. And the first line he says, you hear him outside as the cops pull up to apprehend Michael Myers, and he's like, "Stay back, the evil is here." And I'm just like, holy shit. I said, are we getting it? Are we about to get what I think we about to get? Or like, how are they going to do this? Are we getting close-ups? Are we getting more dialogue? Or what's going on? And he kept saying line after line when they didn't show him. You see the cops getting out the car. He's like, "Michael, stay where you are. Stay where you are, Michael." And then when Thomas Mann goes to the top of the steps, he's looking down those Myers steps. Dr. Loomis runs inside the Myers house and he kind of like looks up the staircase. He's like, "Officer Hawkins." He's like, "Tell me, did Michael kill again? Did Michael kill again?" And I'm telling y'all, the moment, this wasn't, I cried in, the second time I seen Furious 7, and when I saw, Endgame and Logan. I didn't cry here, but listen, it wasn't for like a trying, because my eyes welled up so fucking much. And I felt like, okay, let me get my shit together, because if I blink, it's over. These tears are going to flow. And I got so choked up because the moment he runs in, the way that the camera's set up from the top of the staircase, the distance is just enough for you to go, holy shit. Is that Donald Pleasance walking up? But then they do another close-up shot where he asks him, he's like, did Michael kill again? It's a very close-up shot, and you see, oh, that's not Dr. Loomis, but damn, if they didn't try to make it spot on, which they did, man, all practical effects, no CG. Shout out to Blumhouse and David Gordon Green and Jason Blum. The way they pulled it off was so tasteful, and I loved it, man. I'm telling you, the moment he stepped in that house and was at the bottom of that staircase, his mannerisms and everything, just seeing the likeness of Donald Pleasance in Dr. Loomis again in a Halloween movie, especially a flashback sequence, was so fucking emotional for me, but amazing at the same time. But, Donald Pleasance, man, I didn't think that I have reservations pretty much. I know I just like stammered over so many words just now, but that's how much I love Halloween, and that's how near and dear the character of Dr. Loomis and Donald Pleasance himself are. That's how near and dear they are to my heart, that I was scared. Like, I was ready, like, all right, I know they're going to knock this out of the park, because the flashback sequence was going so good so far. And when they showed him, I almost couldn't handle it, because I'm just like, yo, they fucking did it. They fucking pulled it off, and they brought Loomis back, man. And they show him just enough, man. Even though that second close-up shot of him was like, that was not a make or break moment, but it was like, okay, I know it's not Donald Pleasance, but the closer you get and the more he talks, it's like, oh, okay, I can see what they're doing. But I'm telling y'all, that first shot of him alone was so fucking amazing. And if you guys haven't already, you guys can listen to my commentary for the Halloween Kills, and listen to my spoiler review. And I actually, if you guys haven't checked it out already, got to interview Carmela McNeil, who plays Nurse Vanessa in that movie. We had a blast on that episode talking about it. Those are just some Halloween Kills references. God damn, excuse me, people. God damn. I promise y'all, it was a cough. It was like a cough and like some congestion really quick at the same time. I promise y'all, I was not about to break down crying. Now, for number 5, people, before we cap this off, we're already almost 40 minutes into this, is what I meant to say. Number 5, man, I purposely put this last for a reason, and I'm gonna tell y'all why. There's a reason I didn't do trailer reactions for this movie. And that reason being because I wasn't the biggest fan of the fact that they were doing another one, and the way that they were handling this new cast, the new cast being so young. I'm like, I don't want to see this property combined with Stranger Things. I'm not down for it. The hype train was crazy, and I was the one waiting on the local, waiting for another movie to get me hyped. But that express train was still going. The hype for it was crazy. And I'm just like, yeah, I'm not hype about this. I'm not impressed. But god damn, I'm telling you, cried right then and there. It didn't take shit. The moment this shit happened, waterworks, straight up. And that's why this is the last one that we're capping this episode off with. Egon's ghost in Ghostbusters Afterlife. Now, I'm sorry if this was a spoiler. Listen, it's a spoiler on top of the movie's been out for like a fucking month, first and foremost. And I will, put a disclaimer up, but y'all know what my picks are based on the picture for the episode that I'm going to use. Maybe I'll feel differently once I'm done uploading this or, done recording. But, spoiler alert, people, I'm sorry. I had to put it on this list. It was only right that I put it on the list, and I literally saved the best for last. And let me just tell y'all, man, everything that I said about this movie, my shit talking and, oh yeah, man, I ain't hype about this shit. It's going to be Stranger Things. It's going to be Ghostbusters Jr. pretty much. Meet Stranger Things. You've got the kid from Stranger Things in It Chapter 2. He played Richie Finn Wolford, I think his name is. Then you've got Egon. He's Egon's grandson. You've got Egon's daughter. You've got the little kid who does the podcast. You've got their friend in the mix, and then they were going to bring the OG Ghostbusters back. And I'm like, okay, but y'all did that already in the 2016 movie, and it didn't really work too well. I don't hate the 2016 movie, but a lot of people do. I just feel like it was like it has its moments, but it's not great. It's nothing I would run and tell people about. Like, yo, you got to see that Ghostbusters with with Kristen Wiig and Leslie Jones and Kate McKinnon. Kate McKinnon's fine as all hell, but and Melissa McCarthy's in it. But prior to that 2016 movie, I do love Ghostbusters. I love both those movies. I literally just watched recently the first Ghostbusters, and I forgot how funny and witty that movie is. It's not scary or anything like that, and it's not supposed to be, but you do have creepy ass moments in it, especially the second one, because Vigo scared the shit out of me as a kid. And Janosch, when he gets possessed by Vigo and they try to fuck up Oscar and all that type of stuff, stakes were higher. But Ghostbusters, I wouldn't put it in like my top 10 childhood movies of all time. I honestly don't know what my top 10 movies are. Maybe it'll make the list when I go back and watch them both back to back or watch all three. But I love the movies, but I'm not super crazy about it like everybody else is. But that's not to diss anybody that loves those movies. I understand why you guys would coin that as your favorite movie or top 5, top 10. I understand wholeheartedly. Trust me. I just got to find out where I put those two films and this one. But Egon's Ghost, man, God damn, I'm trying to tell y'all, I did not expect that, because the movie starts with Egon. We don't see him. I don't know who that actor was playing him, but it was a nice stand-in, and the little camera tricks they do to stray away from actually showing his entire face. It was handled really well. It was a pretty bittersweet opening, because Egon does die in the opening. One of the ghostesses get his ass while he's in the house with his contraptions and shit. But, really quickly, before we jump into the moment that straight up made me a battered bitch, and I had to tell a couple people, like, look, man, I was talking crazy about it, and the movie must have heard me or something, because they hit me hard emotionally. But you got to talk about Egon's journey, man. From going, he went from, parapsychology professor at Columbia U, with Ray and Venkman, meeting Winston and going up against Zool and Gozer and the fucking Terror Dogs, which the effects on the Terror Dogs in the first movie are fucking terrible claymation. But I appreciate the sentiment, don't get me wrong, but going back and watching the original, I was like, damn, I don't remember the effects being that dated on the Terror Dogs. But excuse me, people, but from that to going up against evil slime in the city and Vigo and all these fucking ghosts and to save baby Oscar, and there were ghosts in the courtroom that scared the shit out of me as a kid, all that to him moving to Oklahoma, having a fallout with his crew, a fallout with his family, his daughter and his grandchildren and shit, still chasing ghosts but dying in the process, man. To go from that to the moment that I'm talking about in this episode. Listen, let me tell y'all, man. I know I just said that I didn't expect them to hit me so hard like they did in this movie, but the way that they did this was not only a send off, not only closure, but it was such a great tribute to Harold Ramis, man. Rest in peace. Shout out to him. Y'all hear how serious and low my voice just got. My shit just got real monotone because the breaking moment, pretty much. They're fighting Gozer at the end of the movie, and the three, Ray, Venkman, Winston, the OGs are back. The OGs are back, and the three proton packs are not enough. They're not enough to defeat the evil. And what happens is the granddaughter, Egon's granddaughter, who looks like a Spangler, by the way. Both his grandkids look like Spanglers, by the way. But she picks up the proton pack, and you're like, she can barely even wield this shit. So how is this going to be? How's the fourth pack going to be enough to defeat the ghost? So what happens is you get this shot where you see the ray gun just going off, but then you see these like illuminated, kind of sparkly, glittery blue hands grab the barrel of that ray gun, right? They grab the barrel, and then you hear that classic Ghostbusters theme, but it's very lighthearted. It almost sounds like it's a Chris Columbus movie, like Mrs. Doubtfire, because you hear it do 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 do, and then the camera spins around, same shot and everything from when you see these hands, these ghostly hands pick up that barrel. The camera spins around to show us Egon Spangler's fucking ghost helping his granddaughter hold the man. listen. And she kind of like looks out the corner of her eye like, holy shit, Grandpa, is that you? She doesn't say it, but she looks at him like just creeped out almost and like just in complete disbelief. But Egon's helping her out. He's looking straight ahead, focusing on the task at hand. But he looks over and sees her seeing him. And he kind of just throws her this, God damn, I'm getting choked up talking about this shit. He throws her a smile like, hey, like he doesn't say a word, but he throws her a smile and then gets right back. He looks right back in the direction of Gozer. And then all the fucking Ghostbusters are going at it. You know what I'm saying? They're all side by side. So you see him, slowly, sidestepping to get her in line, like to unify her with his OG homies, the Ghostbusters. And then you get this shot. You get this shot of all three OG Ghostbusters side by side doing their thing again. It's a nostalgic shot, but as the camera pans over, you see Egon right next to them. You don't see his granddaughter in the shot. It's just all four of them. Then you get the reaction shots from the original Ghostbusters. Ernie Hudson looks at him like, the fuck? Like they're still firing off at this thing. And then I love how Bill Murray looks at him once, then he looks at him again, then he looks at him again, and he's just like Bill Murray's just kind of like unnerved by the whole thing. And he's like, yeah, I figured you show up. So once they defeat Gozer, it's all quiet. Everybody's like, oh, everybody's okay. Let me check on everybody. Egon's still standing there. First of all, let me say this, man. I'll get to that in a second. Egon's still standing there. And they're all just looking at him. And Bill Murray's just laxed about it. That was always his character throughout the movie. He's like, man, I figured you'd show up. And Ernie Hudson's like, he's like, Dan Aykroyd. He says, he's like, I'm sorry, I should have called because they had a bad falling out to the point where he told Egon's granddaughter when she called, him from jail. She's like, listen, Egon Spangler can burn in hell or he can rot in hell, whatever he said, which was a reference to the first movie, the shit that spray painted on that door. But, he tells him like, look, man, I should have believed you. I should have called. And Egon just gives him this look like, he's like, I know, man, it's all right. But he doesn't say anything. It's all understood. And then Ernie Hudson's like, he's like, or no, he doesn't say I should have called. He said, I'm sorry I didn't believe you or something like that. Ernie Hudson is the one that says I should have called. I miss you, my friend. And God damn it, y'all. I'm not going to do it. Not on this episode. Y'all ain't gonna hear me do it on this episode. I will not get emotional. But then, he says, I miss you, my friend. And Egon just kind of looks at, he kind of looks at Ernie Hudson and he's just like, he nods his head and you can tell that he's looking at him like, I know, man, it's all good. He makes amends with everybody at the end of the movie that he had fallen out with without saying a word. He goes up, puts his hand on his grandson's shoulder for a job well done. He crouches down in front of his granddaughter, fixes, he moves a little bit of her hair out the way and just smiles at her, kind of good to see you, job well done type shit. Everybody's in disbelief at this point. Then he gets up and looks at his daughter. His daughter runs right into his arms and she hugs him. And Egon just has this look of relief on his face as his daughter is holding him, man. And all the other Ghostbusters are just staring. And oh my God, man, at that moment when they're hugging, when him and his daughter are hugging, Egon just disappears. He slowly just, evaporates and disappears into the sky. And they play like this very orchestrated version of that Ghostbusters, not the original Ghostbusters theme, but the little musical notes I was just talking about. They play like this orchestra version of that as he goes up into the sky and disappears. The granddaughter starts crying. Man, listen, I don't know. I think Ivan Reitman, his son had him play Egon for, standing as Egon for a couple scenes. I don't know who did the motion capture shit for the CG. That shit looked like Harold Ramis. That looked like Harold Ramis in a motion capture suit. That had y'all would have told me, had Jason Reitman, like, come on, dog, you could have told everybody. And I'm pretty sure there wasn't a dry seat in the house in the theater. Because that is one of the most touching tributes I've ever seen in my fucking lifetime, man. I don't think they could have done a better one on TV. Like, nothing will beat that tribute. Ever. I don't care who does it. I don't care how they try to do it and montage and jazz it up. That was amazing to me. And I'm telling y'all, the moment that camera spun around, first of all, I was just like, wait, is that who I think it is? And then when they spin that camera around and you see Egon holding that pack up for his granddaughter or helping her with it, I lost it. Immediately lost it. I don't care. Call me a punk bitch, emotion, whatever. I don't give a shit because I was all wrong about this movie. It was entertaining, but that ending, that goddamn ending, yo, broke the shit out of me. So I had to save that for last because I gotta, if I see the movie again, I don't know how quickly it's going to be streaming, but I definitely want to do commentary for that. That is going to be a commentary where y'all probably hear me for the first time in To The Review's history. Y'all might hear me cry on that episode, man. I'm telling y'all, because it's not a moment to be taken lightly. And for me to say everything I said about the movie prior, the movie gods heard me, the Ghostbusters gods heard me, and they gave me that ending right there. I mean, the post-credit sequence is cool with Ernie Hudson and was it Janine Potts? This is the receptionist, the one that answers Ghostbusters. Like, she's in there. You know, they get the firehouse back and they get the Ecto-1 all punched up and stuff like that. But that moment with Egon, man, that is some of the most amazing shit I've seen on screen in a fantasy movie, whatever the case may be. Just the way they handled it, man. I could see why, you know, the OG 3 Ghostbuster actors came back for this. Now, they only came back for cameos in the 2016 movie, but I can see why they came back for this, because they said that the script was proper. The script is where it starts, people. That's the foundation. That's the template for your film. And for it to be such a great tribute to, you know, to Harold Ramis, man, that's just a testament to, I feel like, how much Jason Reitman paid attention to what his father did with those first 2 movies, man. It was the sentiment was all there, the emotion was all there, the tribute was all there. They handled that shit so properly, man. And I take back everything I said about the Ghostbusters Afterlife film, and I find myself doing that a lot this year. You know, we're capping the year off pretty soon. We'll be in the 2022 before you know it. But I've been doing that a lot, man. I've been talking a lot of shit about movies, and they turn out being really decent, man. And I end up, you know, eating that crow. And that's a part of my dietary regimen this year, apparently, because I've done it a lot, man, with the trailers, with the reviews, all types of stuff. I might do it tonight, you know, because they're dropping the Sonic 2 trailer tonight. I'm mad they're waiting until 8 o'clock, but it's some type of game event where the trailer is going to premiere. But I probably will be wrong about that. I mean, I'm going into that a little more optimistic, but I ate crow for the first movie because I think I gave it, you know, you guys can check out my review if y'all want. I think I gave it like a 7 or 7.5 out of 10. But moral of the story, people, don't go into these movies with a heavy heart. Please don't, because if they got shit like the ones that I just mentioned, moments that are set to break you, they'll set out to break you, depending on what type of fan you are and what you are a fan of in particular. You know, fan service does pay off at times, man. And I feel like these are just the moments. These are the 5 moments. I know it took me a long ass time. I apologize, people, but I tried to keep it as short-winded as I could. But I feel like these are the moments that definitely stuck out. Stuck out. Is that a word? I just made it up. This is how you know. Too much coffee, people, but I needed it earlier today. But yeah, in closing, yeah, just don't go into, you know, don't be emotional, people. I don't know. I don't have a Jerry Springer final thought for this episode in particular, because I feel like I dragged out that whole Egon Spangler thing for so long. But moral of the story, people, is I'm human. You know, I'm emotional. I hurt sometimes, and sometimes these movies definitely get the waterworks out of me, man, rightfully so. But these are the movies that always will forever hold a special place in my heart, because I feel like if you can make me cry when I watch the movie, if you can scare me, genuinely scare me, if you can make me laugh out loud, and if you can make me throw up as far as gore goes. There was only one movie that made me throw up, and that was Friday the 13th, Jason Takes Manhattan. I still don't understand why that is the only movie to ever make me throw up. I think I was sick prior. That's my excuse, man. And I'm sticking to it. The only other movies that probably, let me see, do that. There's a movie called Bite. Dead Alive almost did that. I don't know. That's a different episode for a different time, people. The movies that almost made me puke. Maybe I'll do that outline now when we're done uploading all this stuff. But people, y'all already know where to go, man. And if y'all don't, y'all can follow the podcast on Anchor, Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Breaker, Radio Public, Podbean, and Podcast Addict. Shout out to Anchor. Follow me on Facebook and Instagram, Romero Tudor. Shout out to the Facebook movie group, The Cinemaniacs. And shout out to the Facebook movie group, The Horror Virus. And last but certainly And never not least, shout out to the Tudor reviewers, the listeners, the lovers, the supporters out there. People, I need to recharge my, like, literally my battery, like, in my body right now. Because I feel like I've had too much coffee, but sometimes when I feel that way, I just need to get more because I don't want it to wear off. And I'm trying to keep this momentum going because I don't know, like, how busy tomorrow's going to be, or Saturday. Hopefully not too crazy, but I feel like I want to do more than a couple episodes today so I can do what I did maybe last week and get some episodes out to y'all over the course of the rest of this week, as opposed to just dropping them all in one day and just overwhelming everybody with episode after episode. I feel like pacing, I'm kind of learning how to pace myself a little bit better these days. So we'll see how that pans out, people. But y'all already know the love and support that y'all show me. I show it back to y'all tenfold and then some. So with that being said, people, yours truly, Romero Tudor. Another episode of Tudor Reviews in the can. I'll check y'all on the next one.